the Detroit Lions' chances all depend on their trenches in the offensive line. And I'll tell you why. It also may determine who comes out of the NFC.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. I am Tony Wiggins. We thank you for making us your first listen. Joined today by Julian Council, and as I always am on Mondays, and Julian is here. We're going to put our finger on the pulse of the NFL as much as we can because the preseason has kind of worn us all out, but we're going to make sure we get to it. Also, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We're free to subscribe to. We'll be there whether you watch or listen. Make sure so you do not miss an episode of the show. Shout out to the everydayers that join us each and every day, and to the newcomers. The reason why they join us is because we talk about subjects like this. Julie and I are both credentialed members of the media, but we have a local flair, so we also depend on the help of local experts via clips from around the league to give you the best from those teams. At the end of the show, we're going to talk about the Washington trade with the 49ers for Deebo Samuel and why Brock Purdy's new number one may allow the 49ers to not be losers of that trade. The Sanders chance in Cleveland is a question, but it's a question that we are going to have to answer with some nuanced thinking because you got to watch what you say. But we're going to start the show talking about the Detroit Lions and how their health, for one, and they have to continue dominating. How is that going to affect the outcome of 2025, not only for them, but for themselves? Julian, let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. The Eagles are the favorite to win the NFC, even though no team has even won the NFC East back-to-back in 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a minute. So I suppose we can go with Philadelphia. I like the Rams a lot this year. Like, they would actually be my favorite. Now, Matthew Stafford and whatever is going on with him physically, I mean, time and age, always going to be undefeated. That has me a little concerned, but Devontae Adams now being a part of that receiving tandem with Puka Nacua, defensively, what they did with some of those young guys last year, and, you know, Sean McVay, Super Bowl winning head coach with Matthew Stafford as his quarterback. Like, that's currently my favorite to come out of the NFC. But yeah, the Eagles, I get it. They're awesome. They lost some people, but it's Philly.
Yeah, they are awesome. The one team, though, that we can all say put up a good fight last year, despite having 98 people on injured reserve, was the Detroit Lions. And if anybody needs a break with injuries, it's the Detroit Lions. And then they lose Frank Ragnow, an all-pro, not a Pro Bowl, but an all-pro center right in the prime of his career. And they've had some other injuries along the offensive line. They still got Penix Jr. They still got a good quarterback. Here's my man, Matt Derry, to tell you about the Lions' chances.
This team will only go as far as this offensive line takes them. Yes, they've got an excellent quarterback, all right? They've got as good a wide receiver as there is in the league. They got a budding superstar at the other wide receiver. They got good depth at wideout. We've talked about Isaac Tesla and how good he looks in the preseason. Their tight end is all-world in Sam Laporta. All right, their running backs could be the best tandem in the game with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And you know, I love me some Craig Reynolds. Come on, Craig. But the O-line's got to be healthy, and these guys have got to have time in the next month to work together.
My man Matt Derry with the Friday reference. He'll give you one every now and then. You caught it too, didn't you? Come on, Craig.
Yeah. Yes, I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. But he's right about something. I think I played that clip before, but it is relevant to me now. The Detroit Lions are a clear and present threat to anybody in the NFC, but their superpower is their physicality. How is it so, is it malleable that they can replace Frank Ragnow, stay healthy on the offensive line, and still play their brand of football? Or will offensive line injuries or perhaps ineptness change how they approach it?
Yeah, I'm not concerned at all, honestly. And here's my thing. Like, if there is a offensive line coach who is the head coach of a team, I'm never going to be concerned about that offensive line. I'm sure there is plenty of examples of poke holes into that maxim that I just placed out there, but I'm not concerned at all with Detroit and their offensive line. You're just going to move Grant Glasgow out over the center. He'll be fine. Taylor Decker and Penix Jr have been one of the better tackle tandems in the NFL the last couple of years. Christian Mahogany, talented player who used to be at Boston College. I think he'll be just fine. And then Tate Ratledge, the rookie from Georgia, he was banged up throughout last season. He had to have the tightrope surgery on his ankle to come back and play. And you never really saw him at his healthiest for the Dogs in an offensive line that had a bunch of injuries, never really reached his potential. But going into a year ago, like, he was considered a first-round type of talent. It was going to be the best offensive lineman on that Georgia team. So him coming in fully healthy now, being a part of this culture, this offensive line, I'm not concerned. Like, I don't see, I guess, it makes more sense for the people in Detroit who are at boots on the ground to be a little bit more concerned because of losing Frank Ragnow. But to me, I know it's an all-pro player, so you don't just simply replace those kind of guys. But this is a unit that still has plenty of continuity and obviously talent to have success and to carry them forward even without Ben Johnson as their OC this upcoming season.
Yeah, and speaking of teams that you wouldn't be concerned about, one of them is the Chiefs. They've been to 5 of 6 Super Bowls. But my thought is, I've seen these things before. Fortunately for me, I'm old enough to remember things that I never thought would change. Does the change start happening this year? Let's peek in on the Chiefs with Locked On Chiefs.
But we start with the overall mission. Number one is to put this team together in position to press for another Super Bowl, to make that run. And I have to say, Brett Veach's plan has come together at nearly every single turn so far, from the point that they were embarrassed in that last Super Bowl to the point where they opened camp. Everything has gone along as well as you can expect. Is it perfect? No, but the plan is coming together, and that top tier is where it stands out the most.
But one of the biggest plans was improving the offensive line, and the Jalen Moore signing, regardless of whether or not he becomes a starter for this team, was a brilliant move.
Listen, man, it must be nice, and both of us cover teams that we don't get to feel that way. It must be nice to wake up and the expectation is you are going to contend or win for a Super Bowl, but it must also be stressful to try to make sure you keep up that standard each and every season.
Yeah, we always did this as the media, not me, but the media, the overall royal we, when it came to the dynasty that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady built up there in New England. Every year trying to predict, is it finally over? Now, the only time it was easy to predict was when Tom Brady was going to be a free agent that offseason and they had to just lost to the Tennessee Titans. And then people in college always did it with Nick Saban in Alabama. Was never easy to predict, and people were wrong plenty of the times. Yep. I'm not going to be one of those people that predicts when this dynasty in Kansas City is going to end, as long as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are together. And even when Andy eventually retires, if Pat's there, I feel pretty good about this team. Like, defensively, Steve Spagnuolo is still there at defensive coordinator. They're going to have one of the best defensive lines again in football with George Karlaftis, Charles Omenihu, and of course, Chris Jones. And I love the Omar Norman Lott draft pick from Tennessee. That guy was outstanding last year for the Vols. And then just like, they're not going to get worse defensively. Like, the only thing about this team that really has held it back, especially when you get to the Super Bowl, has been the offensive line. And much like when they got embarrassed against Brady and the Bucs a couple years ago, they went out the offseason after that and went to work on the offensive line. So we'll see how that plays out. I honestly don't love the receiving core that they have here. Like, Travis Kelce clearly is not the Travis Kelce that we have grown to know and love over the course of the last couple of seasons. Even last year, you could see him taking a step back, but I do like Noah Gray, Robert Tonyan are guys that can help out there. Wide receiver, I mean, Rashee Rice, we'll see what he's like coming off of injury. He's got all the off the field stuff that happened that still hasn't been figured out. Xavier Worthy got speed. Don't really love him as a true receiver. Like, Hollywood Brown, was banged up most of last year. Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't love the pass catchers, but it's Patrick Mahomes, and he's found a way the last couple of years with that group and even a worse group, and still managed to go win a Super Bowl and be in another one. So I'm sure they're going to figure it out. So someone else can predict that they're going to have a downfall, even though they got away with it last year. And I said all year long until it all finally came to roost there at the end. I'm not predicting that Kansas City is taking a step back. until they actually take a step back.
Yep, and you mentioned the word downfall. Cleveland knows what that's all about because they fell down a while back and ain't been able to get up. We'll talk about the Browns quarterback situation in just a second. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Rugiet. Listen, guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but you're looking for something beyond the usual pill. If that's so, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Hey, man, sometimes traditional options haven't worked, and Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary. With prescription treatment, compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. All right, I'll bite. My long shot division winner is the New York Giants. And I only say that because no team has gone back-to-back in the NFC East, and I think the Giants are going to be really, really good on defense. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, let's discuss the quarterback battle that has not been much of a battle. Joe Flacco is going to start in Cleveland, and I'm going to turn this into something else in just a second. We're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders and a lot of things that are going on out there in the universe.
Yeah.
When it comes to injustice and standing up for people, I'm all for that fight, right? First, let's hear from Spencer German about what is going on with the Joe Flacco commitment from the Cleveland Browns, and then we'll discuss Shedeur Sanders.
And so Flacco is kind of the perfect quarterback for that type of situation. You have no commitment to him after this season. It's a one-year deal. You see what you get out of it. And then, next year, you can draft your franchise quarterback if you don't think either of these rookies are the franchise quarterback. You also know you have those two rookies waiting in the wings to turn things over to once we get to a point in the season where maybe things aren't going in the right direction, or if they lose a lot of games early on, now all of a sudden you can pivot and go, okay, we got these rookies. Let's see what we got in these guys and sort of evaluate them the best you can before the end of the season gets here.
Julian Council, I'm going to take a serious stand here. I've been covering it. I've been credentialed for 20 years, right? I'm a big Deion Sanders fan for what he did as a player and who he is as a player. I think generally he's a good guy, and I don't think his kids are character problems for anybody. I will say this. There's a wide varying opinion on how good he was. The draft spoke. He was in the 5th round. I don't have any personal knowledge of anybody sabotaging anything. I'm not saying it did or did not happen. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is this. Of all the training camps I've been in, I ain't never seen the 5th round draft pick get reps with the 1st and 2nd team in any training camp I have ever been in, right? The one I can tell you that it did happen was Gardner Minshew, and that's because the Jaguars absolutely did not have any quarterback on their roster worth anything, and it was clear what they were trying to do. And even then, he wasn't projected to be the future. That being said, I'll give the benefit of the doubt. I'll roll my sleeves up. I'll put on my boxing gloves and fight for injustice when it happens. But somebody has to show me something tangible that says that 32 teams passed him up until the 5th round. And then the one team that took him, that's paying another guy $230 million, who's also black, that somehow they're being unfair. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much we're talking about the Browns quarterback situation when this is going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. And aside from the Saints, they have the worst quarterback situation in the league. Like, my read on it from the beginning was that Flacco and Kenny Pickett were going to be battling for the starting job. Kenny Pickett's been injured the last couple of weeks, so he obviously did not win the job. Joe Flacco, who helped them get to the playoffs a couple of years ago when Deshaun Watson was injured, made sense that he would be in that spot heading into the year. And then after that, Dylan Gabriel, the 3rd-round pick from Oregon, then Shedeur Sanders, 5th-round pick from Colorado. Those guys, at some point in time, like Spencer said, once the season was lost, one of them, maybe both of them, will get an opportunity to show what they have. And if it did not show enough, then they would end up looking at a quarterback in next year's draft class, which apparently is going to be much better than the one that we just had back in April. So, like, yeah, it's weird because I didn't think Shedeur was going to go in the 5th round. That certainly surprised me. Like, did he have any sort of like elite trait or anything like that? No. But do I think he was better than a 5th round selection? Certainly. The way that they handled the draft process maybe would have been a better situation had they not gone about it the way that they did. Not to say that the league was trying to humble them, but if you withhold information, don't have all these meetings, like, that limits the opportunities you could have had across the league to where maybe you had gone a lot higher than 5th round. So I don't think he's a 5th round talent at all. And when I got to see him here in Charlotte run with the ones during joint practice and then start that preseason game, he did not show to be a 5th round talent. And understand, that was when he was with the Browns 1s and 2s. This past Saturday, he was back there with the 3s and 4s. And if you have watched any preseason game ever, you notice that when that quarterback, the 3rd or 4th guy, is playing with that level of talent, they typically struggle because those guys are 3rd and 4th stringers for a reason on the offensive line. So, yeah, it's not a shock that Shedeur played better with the better players on Cleveland and then played poor with the poorer players on Cleveland. And like, I sat there on Thursday night here in Charlotte and watched Logan Woodside and Skylar Thompson, guys who have actually started games in the NFL, have to go through the same thing and haven't heard a word about anyone talking about their situations. Like, Shedeur is actually fortunate to have the injuries that have occurred with Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett for him to at least have shown his talents with a better core around him in the first week of the preseason with joint practice and that game against Carolina. So that is a benefit to him. I'm sick of the conversation. Like, he's not going to be the starter. He's a 5th round guy. Should he have been? Like, we can debate that until we're blue in the face. It's exhausting.
It is.
I just had no idea like this was what it was going to be back when Dion went to Colorado. Like, I completely like misjudged how much people loved him and then obviously loved his kids. It's just like, I hope Shedeur plays well. I wish him success, but it's probably gonna be difficult for him in this league to stick around if he's not gonna be the starter. Because like, they did this to Cam Newton to where after his time in New England, he couldn't even get a backup job when he was clearly better. And he said it. There's not 32 guys in the league better than me, but the personality is what scares him. And I don't think Shedeur necessarily has Cam's personality, and he certainly hasn't done what Cam did in college or, of course, did in the NFL. And that kind of makes me concerned about his ability to stick around. And I don't think that's a racial thing at all. It's just, the NFL, they're weird. They just don't want to put up with personalities at all, especially if you're not that guy.
Yeah. So in the example I used yesterday in a discussion I had with a friend, a good dear friend of mine, is this: Dennis Rodman wore dress and makeup in the 90s. And nobody cared because he was going to get 28 rebounds and 10. He's going to dive out the loose balls. These dudes want to win more than anything, man. And I cannot imagine that people, especially in Cleveland, especially where they're paying a dude who doesn't even play, where they could get a dude who could win the fans over, win the city over. They could play well with him. Stefanski can save his job, and they're paying him 5th round money, which would mitigate the money that they're paying the dude who's not playing, that they wouldn't take advantage of if they somehow could. I also know that it's not their job to be so openly transparent as to tell us why he's off to the side and why they're doing it. If I'm Kevin Stefanski, I wouldn't sit there and explain myself to a whole bunch of people either. I'm just, it's sad for me because I think he's a really, really nice kid who handles this stuff with grace. He smiles.
I think he's done a great job handling.
Oh man, he's something else, man. And to me, that's the biggest thing you can say about him. That's more of a credit to how he was brought up than anything else.
Absolutely.
However, NFL coaches and people don't want the personality to outshine the production. Nobody wants to hear the third string quarterback or see the third string quarterback getting all that attention because the backup quarterback is usually already everybody's favorite person, right? You know, especially with teams that don't win. They just don't like noise. And call it what you want. I'll fight for anybody and with anybody if you can show me tangible proof instead of just getting on here and saying things because you don't agree with it.
Right.
There was a trade between Washington and the 49ers in the offseason. We keep wondering who's going to win, but if the 49ers quarterback if Brock Purdy develops the relationship with Ricky Pearsall that we think he could, then it won't even be a question. We'll discuss that more here on Locked On NFL. All right, we have an important question. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you and presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here and everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now's the time. And it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether it's your first time or if you're a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers you so many fun ways to compete. You want more ways to play? Try brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Go get your crew together and go ahead and get a private league. No crew? No problem. Join a public league. It's the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Rolling along here with my man Julian Council. Washington and San Francisco made a trade that I thought made a lot of noise. Deebo Samuel went to Washington. And then I was wondering who the San Francisco 49ers were going to throw the ball to. And I had to remember, even though Brandon Ayuk got hurt, Ricky Pearsall was a very, very nice rookie for them last year. Listen to the guys from Locked On 49ers talk about the Purdy-Pearsall connection.
But even more than Brock Purdy looking sharp was his connection with Ricky Pearsall. And I think it's one of the most important things that needs to develop this year for the 49ers. And it needs to not develop halfway through the season or late in the season or even early in the season. It needs to develop now and into week one. And it looks like it is on that path with the connection from Brock Purdy to Ricky Pearsall, the only quote unquote starter at wide receiver that is healthy right now for the 49ers. And Pearsall caught 3 of his 4 targets for 42 yards.
Ricky Pearsall is a nice little player. Now, is he going to be able to be a number one and be the gamer that Deebo Samuel has been for the 49ers the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, we'll see, man. And I'll say this. For a guy who took a GSW to the chest before the season to come back and to play the way he did, like, obviously respect to him, and thank God, like, that was not a situation that it could have been very easily gone the other way. So I'm happy for him that he was able to bounce back from that and have a really nice rookie season, despite a serious situation. But yeah, I mean, receiver wise right now for San Francisco, like Brandon Ayuk going to start the season off on PUP. Got Jacob Cowlings injured, like Demarcus Robinson suspended because of DUI. And then, like, okay, I love Juwan Jennings, and like he balled out in that Super Bowl a couple years ago. Like, I've loved that dude since like I was down in Nashville covering Tennessee football. Like, he was a dog back on those Vols teams, and that has carried over to the NFL. So I'm not going to doubt him ever. But like outside of that, I have my concerns. I had my concerns early on in the season. Now they do have a great offensive line, and we already know that the running concepts, like McCaffrey's going to be able to be a guy in and out of the backfield as a runner and as a catcher that will help them as far as receiving game goes. And, you know, there's that guy, George Kittle, too. So I think they'll be all right, but there is reason to be concerned, at least for the first 5 or so weeks, just about the overall wide receiver core and whether Ricky Pearsall can step up into that role and be the guy for them at wide receiver. There's still McCaffrey, there's still Kittle, and it's still one of the better offensive lines in the league. And Kyle Shanahan, of course, calling the plays.
Hey, man, they got traded another tough guy, Brian Robinson Jr. from Washington. So there's like a swap of tough guys. And speaking of Brian Robinson Jr. also
got shot
and survived.
Came out the mini-man, man.
Yeah, man. So, hey, mini-man video. That's right, man. And 49ers got 2 of them that can do the same thing. And we're glad both of those guys are extremely healthy. Somebody else is healthy. And I always got to toss you softball real quick. You cover a team that's in the NFC South, right?
Oh, okay.
And you got to hear about the Bucks, and you got to hear about all these people. Aaron Freeman had somebody on his show, and he said something about Michael Penix that I wanted you to hear, and you only. I actually saved this just for you.
Oh, okay.
He is a natural fit for what the Falcons' 2 most talented receivers do best, and that's Drake London and Kyle Pitts, which is throw it up and let them win the ball in the air. Let them go up and get it, throw them open. If you just go watch Michael Penix highlights at Washington, and he's the best fade route thrower to enter the league since probably Aaron Rodgers. Okay. I mean, he throws a beautiful football exactly where it needs to be. And then the confidence, I mean, you watch that scream and throw that was a little bit cocky against the Panthers up the left boundary, where he just I don't remember who he hit. I think it was Kadarius Hodge, but that was a laser that he just threw right past the safety trying to cut it off.
All right, I know the guy in Cincinnati throws fade routes and back shoulder routes to Jamar Chase. So I'm just gonna remind people that dude number 9 up in Cincinnati kind of does that pretty good. But that's high praise, man, when you start comparing Michael Penix to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and like I'm thinking back to Washington, and it's the Oregon game back in 2023 that was there in Seattle, where I think he had 2 touchdown throws, including the game-winning one to Rome Odunze. It was the opening drive, and then it was, I think, late in the 4th quarter, and it's just like those throws were just ridiculous. Now, also Rome Odunze kind of has the same profile as a Kyle Pitts and as a Drake London. So yeah, I can see how that would make a lot of sense, and how Michael Penix, I guess, is the perfect quarterback for those guys. I mean, he's better than what they've had recently, so that makes him more perfect than the guys in the past, all due respect. But yeah, I love him. I'm a huge Michael Penix Jr. fan. I hope he continues to rip it up. Now, using the Panthers game, like there were some great throws in that game. That was also a secondary that was down J.C. Horn. They were down to like their 5th string corner, Shamar Bartholomew. And then all the safeties they had last year are gone. Yeah. So, yeah, like I would hope he would have put up the numbers he put up against that Panthers defense in week 18 when they were down their best 3 players and had been already to that point the worst defense in the history of the NFL scoring defense wise.
I am a big fan. He's a Florida boy. So I all of our dudes, man, I root for him. Little quick note, somebody mispronounced his name as he was leaving the field the other day in a preseason game, and he walked up that do-rag and said, "What you call me?" I'm telling you, man, you can't be messing with Florida dudes, especially when they got that do-rag on. Ain't no
I remember Desmond Howard was on game day talking about that big Penix energy. I was like, you better better make sure you get that one right.
You better say it right, man, because if you don't, people going to be looking at you sideways, man. I had my fantasy draft yesterday. I did good. I did good Saturday in my other league, too, because I watched Locked On Fantasy Football. That's right. Podcast with Vinny Iyer and Michelle Majuk. I listen every time I prep for these fantasy drafts, and you need to be doing the same thing if you want to win your league. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also find Julian Council on Locked On Panthers for the latest news of the Panthers. And make sure you check out everyone from around the Locked On Podcast Network. We always appreciate you spending time with us. It's about 30 minutes today, and we don't take that for granted. So make sure you tap back in to the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll see you later.
Terry McLaurin just got an extension.
Oh, he did. Look, see,
Yeah.
as we're leaving, Terry McLaurin. Do you have the details yet?
Yeah, it is 3 years, $96 million, up to $96 million.
Yeah. So Adam Peters is a tough negotiator, but you ain't trying to lose those games. You better make him happy. There you go. Breaking news. Terry McLaurin did get a contract extension. I'm sure Tyler Rowland will have that for you in the morning as the madman wakes you up with a double shot of espresso. Terry McLaurin will be on the docket. We'll see you later here on Locked On NFL.